And what has possessed the Capitol?
There's a demon called Bahamut, and exorcists have found out that he's the one who is dissolving the country in order to bring it into something different, and it's called dissolve and coagulate, dissolve and bring back together. And so there's exorcists have said that that's one of the Satan's generals, demons, one of his generals, and he's the one who's doing it. And he's, his image, he has tattoos that say Silva and Coagula, and that means dissolve and coagulate. And so that's what they're doing. They're breaking down the country, and they're trying to bring it back into something different. So that's what's happening.
So when you were in the Secretary of Defense office, you mentioned you were there for 73 days and a lot happened, including the storming of the Capitol. Is there anything you wish you had done differently, or how do you evaluate it now looking back?
The criticism I have of myself was I was so freaking naive. I was like, well, now, I mean, at the end of the day, we're all Americans and we care about national security, and we're not going to politicize this. My experience from that was, oh my gosh. And that's what we're experiencing right now. The truth has not been told. The full story has not been told. And
do you mean, when you say that, do you mean the whole story has not been told in terms of how politicized every action is?
No, what has not been told yet is in the complete narrative of what happened that day. And the Department of Defense and I have been, harshly criticized, and Ryan McCarthy, the Secretary of the Army, have been. And my wife and others are like, wow, what would you have done differently? I'm like, you guys don't know the story yet. When the story comes out, I will stand by every decision I made, and it was the correct, proper use of the armed forces. I have not lost a single moment's sleep about the decision making and what the Department of Defense did that way. And but it hasn't been told yet. And frankly, until Congress pulls their head out of there, and has a honest, and I'm not being political right now.
Yeah.
The problem now with this, entertainment media political complex that is just driving this hyper partisanship even further apart and just driving wedges into our country. I'm sorry to get so emotional, but I live that, So I'm like, when this story's told, the problem is it's all, the narrative's been established. So now you're like page 26, retraction. Miller and McCarthy and the Army and the Department of Defense were not complete morons that day. Actually, when we looked at it, everything they said was accurate. So it'll come out one day. But that was probably the biggest failure on my part, was this idea that I was dealing with rational people that had the best interests of the country at hand. And that definitively is not the case.
The Capitol wide open. But assess for yourself. Here's the video.
Our investigation found that immediately after the president's 2:24 p.m. tweet, the crowds both outside the Capitol and inside the Capitol surged.
What the January 6th committee failed to mention was that it was officers misusing munitions and CS gas at that same time that led to a surge.
Hey, Rich. Put it up the scaffolding.
DC MPD Officer Cowrie, at the urging of Officer Thau, misfires a CS gas canister that eventually forces police to fall back and lose their position.
All right, record this. I don't have my gun. Let's go.
As officers on the West Plaza, unequipped with gas masks, struggle breathing, the plume of CS gas can be seen from the overhead camera on the lower right corner of your screen. It blows over the entire area of the West Plaza that the police had secured for nearly an hour. Within 3 minutes of the officer's CS gas misfire, the police line on the West Plaza entirely collapses. The committee failed to mention was that it was officers misusing munitions and CS gas at that same time that led to a surge.
Hey, Rich. Put it up the scaffolding.
DC MPD Officer Cowrie, at the urging of Officer Thau, misfires a CS gas canister that eventually forces police to fall back and lose their position.
All right, record this. I don't have my gun. Let's go.
As officers on the West Plaza, unequipped with gas masks, struggle breathing, the plume of CS gas can be seen from the overhead camera on the lower right corner of your screen. It blows over the entire area of the West Plaza that the police had secured for nearly an hour. Within 3 minutes of the officer's CS gas misfire, the police line on the West Plaza entirely collapses.
Kept screaming that day, there's a bomb, there's a bomb, there's a bomb. Everybody back up, there's a bomb. When I was patching up Josh Black, I could hear Ray Epps screaming, there's a bomb. They're going to set a bomb off. He was yelling this. I'm curious as, like, did he know that there was going to be a pipe bomb found at the DNC? Like, is he a part of that? Like, I don't know. Like, how would he? And then, you know, where the DNC was, that was a small alley right there that they put that bomb in. And he says, oh, stay away from the walls. There might be a bomb there. Why was he so obsessed over his bomb?
If it looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, then the FBI already had all this planned before you got.
She was the one screaming F and and all that stuff, and I started jumping on her about it. I said, that's not what we're here for. And she started ripping into me, and I just said, I think you are Antifa. And she shut up and went away. And then we got up to, you want me to go through it? Or you want to ask questions?
Sure, no, if you're handling it, you can keep going.
Well,
I'll jump in when
it'll flow.
Yeah. I'll jump in if I need to jump in.
Okay.
To clarify.
So followed them down, and we got up there, and there's barricades. I don't know. They're just little sections of fence.
And just so you know, I'll tell you now. We got some still photos, and I'll show you some later once you finish.
Yeah,
and we'll go through those. But go ahead.
Okay. So that, and we get up there, and everybody starts piling up, and there was a kid there, and he started doing this with barricades. And I walked up to him and I put my arm on him and said, hey, that's not why we're here. Don't be doing that. You know. And next thing I know.
So real quick, had you ever seen that kid? Was this the kid with the
I've never seen any of
with the hood?
Yeah.
Actually, since we're there already.
I don't know who he was. No clue. I just tried to talk him out of doing what he was doing. And then all of a sudden it blew up.
So this photo that's all everywhere.
That's the guy right there. That's the guy right there. And
the young kid.
Yeah, I put my arm on him and I just told him. I said, "Hey, that's not why we're here." And he stopped.
Is this you?
What's that?
Is that you in there?
This is me.
Oh, okay.
And that's the kid.
76.
Here, correct? I'm assuming the door's right here or right here. Yeah. Side door. And they actually got up here, and they were pepper spraying and throwing things down on everybody down here. So.
And this is the farthest that you got, or did you go?
Well, I got by this door to haul this guy out. Wherever this door's at, I got there to haul him out.
Okay.
Yeah.
They call you and do anything?
No, they called me. They kept calling me. It kept calling me. It kept calling me. I was advised not to speak to anybody.
Okay,
so
I was just.
And I told them that. And
Okay. And your son didn't enter the Capitol?
No.
No? Did his friend enter the Capitol?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay. Is his friend from Utah too? Or
Yeah.
Okay. And you said when you got back here, I think you said your brother-in-law called you and told you about the photo that was
right.
That it's the bolo that
right.
the DC put out.
Well, he didn't call me. He called my sister.
Okay.
No,
he called my wife. I'm sorry, his sister, my wife.
Me. And I can tell you exactly because he sent me a text actually.
Okay. And you're probably still concerned that the picture's probably still out there. Well, it's probably out there forever now. The internet,
well, we've felt the repercussions. I mean, we've had people come on our business site and try to destroy us, and it's just like I'm an insurrectionist, and I'm a traitor, and I've been called everything in the book. but it's dying down now, I hope.
He's a former Marine, so he supports his country.
I support this country and our Constitution and the police and the FBI and everybody else.
How do you feel about the situation as a whole now? How do you feel about what happened?
Well, I still have concerns about the election. I do. I mean, I think everybody does. I think our politicians, some of them need to be in jail. I think you guys need to investigate them. I don't know. You know, how much of what we get is the truth.
Oh, if you don't have any more questions, I don't think I have any more.
So let me ask you guys some questions. So what kind of task force are you on? Are you originally from Phoenix?
Yeah, we're from.
You live here?
Yes, we're from the Phoenix field office here.
And you live here?
Yes.
Best place on the planet to live.
You're not like on a special task force and you came here just to see him?
No, we're on the Joint Terrorism Task Force in Phoenix. We get leads sent to us from, so say this event is the DC event, they'll send a lead out to go interview Mr. Epps, and then we go interview Mr. Epps.
If you don't mind, and again, I know you can tell me, you can't tell me, but I mean, at least I'd ask.
Sure.
You know, you never, don't be scared to ask. But they tell you that too, right? You always ask.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Director, I can't talk right now. Okay.
Was that a joke? Director, I can't talk right now?
Yeah, like they're talking the director of the FBI, like they're making a joke.
Another joke.
Ray Epps' lawyer used to be right underneath the director of the FBI. Ray Epps hired a former FBI.
What is the allegation against him, if there is one?
Well, the allegation is that he may have been on unrestricted property or restricted property.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So essentially what we do, we come out and do this interview, we put together what we have, and it goes back to DC. All the legal process is out of the district, the U.S. Attorney's
name for that.
Oh, I understand. I think in DC, the concern was that he was in the picture. It's a bad situation because just the way things fell. He was in
I'm
that
the
video.
tallest guy in the crowd, and I stick out, man. And
So
they followed me.
We said that the same way. We said it's a big guy, and every photo we find, he's in it. And then the night before, that video didn't help, and then you happened to be in the video when the guy.
Well, they didn't come out with the one the night before until they saw the picture, and that guy wanted to be famous. So and now the media is like cutting these little things. I heard that I was on when they opened up the Senate or the Congress or the whatever it was, the impeachment, that they had me on there as well, and I'm just like, really? I could never be a bank robber. Film footage, you can talk to any officer at either place, and they'll tell you the same thing, that I was trying to calm people down and de-escalate it.
And we're not trying to say anything contrary to that, but the problem is, like you said too, the video the night before,
everybody's heads are down here except mine.
And the video the night before, what you said basically predicted what happened.
It came true. I wish I could take that back.
That made it look like
I
you
know.
were frontlining it.
My wife's like, "You really said that?" I was thinking it. I said it. I'm sorry.
You're talking about we need to go to the Capitol.
Yeah.
And again, I think.
No, I said we need to go in.
Yeah, and it was
really
made it.
I think there's a lot of times we say something like, hypothetically, you're at a bar at a football game and you make a comment about, another player.
I was trying to find common ground with this guy and trying to talk him down,
I think
and
they know what you mean.
it blew up in my face. And this guy, I didn't know who he was from Adam. I know who he is now. He's a jerk. He needs. He's a fugitive. And was a fugitive at the time.
Well, he's been caught.
What's that?
Oh, he's been caught. He's got a fugitive before, but.
So anything exciting coming out of this?
As in, what do you mean? As far as
like what you guys are doing? Is it?
For the fact that they're not touting it anymore, because people think of the pipe bomb now in the context of January 6th being a hoax, much like Ray Epps, which they dealt with somewhat differently for a variety of reasons, doing lawfare, threatening Tucker Carlson, threatening myself, suing Fox News, and so forth. So Ray Epps and the pipe bomb, I've always said, are the twin smoking guns of January 6th. And we're at the very end stages of actually exposing what went on with the pipe bomb. Our last major piece on the pipe bomb, you know, this never happens in the context of media these days. We named a name. We named the name of Ashton Benedict. And the amazing thing is, Ashton Benedict is the current head of dignitary protection and intelligence at the Capitol Police. And he initially came into my purview as someone who, in a closed-door meeting, explained away the fact that the Secret Service and other agents were standing around this pipe bomb. They clearly knew it was fake, but they stood around it, let children walk by it, et cetera, et cetera. His explanation for that was, oh, they let a bunch of kids walk by it because they didn't want to cause panic. Now, that's clearly a bull crap answer, if I could say that, but it's interesting that this is an answer given by the current head of dignitary protection. The guy currently in charge of the safety of all members of Congress gave an answer saying, oh, yeah, you can let people walk right by a bomb if it serves the interest of preventing panic. Now, clearly that's a crap answer because he knows it looks bad. He knows it's a flagrant violation of protocol, and that's his, nothing excuse type of answer. So that was our previous piece. Now we have another puzzle piece, and this is a major extensive bombshell that just dropped at Revolver. It explores another interesting individual called Donnell Harvin. Now, Harvin is a deep state never-Trumper whose office is responsible for the most remarkably accurate January 6th prediction in existence. His office, and this all comes from a puff piece from Washington Post, the narrative here being there were so many warnings about January 6th. The feds are just incompetent, they dropped the ball. But there was one clairvoyant genius who saw it all coming, but because he's like a poor minority guy from the D.C. offices, all the feds ignored him. You know, basically the hidden figure of January 6th. That's how they're trying to portray it. But in the context of this puff piece, they said Donnell Harvin, he knew January 6th would be such a big deal. He knew it would be a mass casualty event. He was calling hospitals, warning them to get extra body bags, so forth and so forth. Somehow, despite all of this urgency, he assigned the most junior analyst in his office to do a threat assessment of January 6th, and the junior analyst came back with something amazing. The junior analyst came back with a quote-unquote worst-case scenario, which was someone might plant explosives near the Capitol, and those explosives would serve as a diversion, diverting resources away from the Capitol, thus enabling a mob to storm the Capitol. Now, that is a remarkably specific prediction that corresponds perfectly to the pipe bombs. I'd like to, take some credit for the fact that they're not
on that, but part of the reason why I came forward in this way and, caused a little quote-unquote disruption in the Q community here is to get your guys' attention. Because whether or not you know it, whether or not you believe it, I am from the highest levels. I am talking to you on behalf of the highest levels of the government and the military. Okay? I, in particular, am working with the Navy. I've been a part of the Navy's Super Soldier program for quite some time. And I have been communicating with them regarding this quote-unquote plan that has actually been in place for quite some time before the Q movement ever took place. Okay? And what I'm...
These lowlives for Trump.
They lied under oath.
They lied under oath.
Right.
Who lied under oath? What are you telling me?
Those two traitors behind you.
Excuse me?
Those two traitors behind you.
They lied under oath?
That's right.
What are you saying?
They're traitors.
They're traitors. You gotta, I don't know, I don't even know how to deal with you, my friend. I don't even know how to deal with you.
Policy. And what's really, really interesting also, Jesse, is go back and look at the Transition Integrity Project documents that became public in June 2020, where in June 2020, you had the former head of the RNC, Michael Steele, the former head of the DNC, Donna Brazile. You had Lawrence Wilkerson and a ton of these U.S. Army generals and colonels who all got together with this simulation plan of how to stop Trump from winning the election, even if he won the Electoral College. They ran 4 simulations. In simulation 3 on page 17, it's on my Twitter timeline at Mike Ben Cyber. If you look this up, they specifically planned that if Trump won the election in a fair and square electoral victory, they could still steal it and have Joe Biden be inaugurated by provoking a breakdown on January 6th. They even said the date in June 2020. These military intelligence and political folks at the highest level of our DC power structure literally plotted to, quote, invoke a breakdown on January 6th. That was the move played in the simulation by Joe Biden's surrogate, effectively role playing Joe Biden in that simulation. Who was the surrogate? It was John Podesta, who was Hillary Clinton's campaign manager and now runs the largest slush fund in all of Washington, a $380 billion green energy fund as the White House czar.
Ballots in over 12 states have been part of a huge Trump and military white hat sting operation. And Biden crime family and ballot fraud co-conspirators, elected officials, bureaucrats, social media censorship mongers, fake stream media reporters, etc., are being arrested and detained for ballot fraud right now and over coming days, and will be living in barges off Gitmo to face military tribunals.
I learned from one man, Tommy Tatum from Greenville, Mississippi. You know, he said something to me during an interview. He has a bunch of local radio stations. And I said, Tommy, you're not a journalist. You don't have that kind of background. Like, why do you have these radio stations? And this is a guy who almost died on the steps of the Capitol next to Roseanne Boyland, right? Mm-hmm. And so I wanted to know, how did you get into having radio stations? And he thought about it, and he looked at me and he said, you know, Laura, he said, where I come from, we're just throwaway people. Nobody cares what we think, and nobody tells our stories. And so I decided I was going to do that, you know, in my community. You know, and that doesn't make this guy a saint. That doesn't make him a perfect person or anything like that. But it was in that moment I realized, wow, when they say flyover country, what they mean is throwaway country, right? Like where I live in Texas. We're just throwaway country. We're throwaway people. If we don't bend to your will and to your narrative, then they just want to talk.
Alpha, why do you think FBI agents are asking someone that would have access or previous training or capability to have that on the Capitol grounds if they were on the Capitol grounds?
Because they know that their information is already going to be protected. It's not going to be captured, but they can capture the people they want.
So imagine if, I don't know, First Amendment rally attendee has one of these devices and he acts as a cell phone tower, capturing every single device within the vicinity of the United States Capitol. Do you really care if that takes place?
Absolutely.
What about if you're a CHS or an FBI agent or an undercover with a device that connects to, let's just say, hypothetically, I have an IMSI catcher on the Capitol grounds and I can see all the communications that were being done by, I don't know, name the dozens of FBI agents and undercovers and the DC Metropolitan Police Department undercovers and officers, and all of their communications with, let's just say, somebody like a Nancy Pelosi or her daughter Alexandra or her son-in-law Michael Voss, as he communicates with John Sullivan, as he communicates with Ray Epps, as he communicates with Adam Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, and so on and so forth. Is that problematic for the Fedsurrectionists?
It absolutely is. And I know if I was looking.
people think of the pipe bomb now in the context of January 6th being a hoax, much like Ray Epps. Ray Epps and the pipe bomb, I've always said, are the twin smoking guns of January 6th. And we're at the very end stages of actually exposing what went on with the pipe bomb. We named a name. We named the name of Ashton Benedict. And the amazing thing is, Ashton Benedict is the current head of dignitary protection and intelligence at the Capitol Police. Now we have another puzzle piece, and this is a major extensive bombshell that just dropped at Revolver. It explores another interesting individual called Donnell Harvin. Now, Harvin is a deep state never-Trumper whose office is responsible for the most remarkably accurate January 6th prediction in existence. His office, and this all comes from a puff piece from Washington Post, the narrative here being there were so many warnings about January 6th. The feds are just incompetent, they dropped the ball. But there was one clairvoyant genius who saw it all coming, but because he's like a poor minority guy from the D.C. offices, all the feds ignored him. You know, basically the hidden figure of January 6th. That's how they're trying to portray it. But in the context of this puff piece, they said Donnell Harvin, he knew January 6th would be such a big deal. He knew it would be a mass casualty event. He was calling hospitals, warning them to get extra body bags, so forth and so forth. Somehow, despite all of this urgency, he assigned the most junior analyst in his office to do a threat assessment January 6th, and the junior analyst came back with something amazing. The junior analyst came back with a quote-unquote worst-case scenario, which was someone might plant explosives near the Capitol, and those explosives would serve as a diversion, diverting resources away from the Capitol, thus enabling a mob to storm the Capitol. Now, that is a remarkably specific prediction that corresponds perfectly to the pipe bombs.
Speaker Pelosi communicate with the House Sergeant at Arms on January 6 or in the days leading up to the riot? 5. Was Speaker Pelosi involved in the decision to delay the National Guard assistance on January 6th? 6. Why didn't the Capitol Police Intelligence Unit raise the alarm about potential violence when they had evidence and intelligence for weeks leading up to January 6th that something violent could happen at the Capitol that day? 7. Why did the FBI deploy commandos to Quantico on January 3rd with shoot-to-kill authority but fail to send the U.S. Capitol Police a single threat assessment or intelligence bulletin? 8. Why did the House Sergeant at Arms refuse to cooperate with the Senate Homeland Security's bipartisan January 6 investigation?
But we do know, as I said earlier, that the chief had made multiple requests for National Guard that someone in Democrat leadership, whether it was the Sergeant at Arms or the staff of Pelosi, did not like the optics, so they turned it down. And if we take what the speaker said at face value in this video, which is not edited, so I don't know how you cherry pick something. This is her daughter filming it, and this is the full videos. I mean, this is their videos. If we take her at her word there, this is the first she knew of any request for the National Guard, then she should be looking at her staff instead of spending $20 million trying to blame it on Donald Trump.
Sure. January 6th was an absolute setup. 100% an absolute setup. So to give you a little bit of backdrop, now I can tell, sir, you have done a little bit of research on January 6th. So when it comes to intelligence, we now know J6 was an intelligence failure. The person employed at the Capitol Police, her name was Yogananda Pittman. She was in charge of intelligence. She had the report that basically laid out what was going to occur on that day. She got that report entitled 21 TD 159, so you guys should write that down. Now, this is the hard question right here, sir. She had that report back in December of 2020. So she had it 3 weeks before January 6th was to happen.
Yep.
So my hard question is this one. Now, I don't know if you want to broach this subject. If you don't, somebody can come grab the mic from me.
I don't tiptoe.
This is a hard one. And most people don't want to say this or don't want to touch this, but I want to see if you want to do it today.
I'm ready. I'm ready for you.
Okay. Here's the question. Now, she had the report and she did not give it to the chief of the Capitol Police, which would have given him what he needed to get National Guard support. What do you think about that information not being turned over to the chief of police? Do you think she just made a mistake? What do you think about that?
So based on the facts that I think you've had the courage to share as somebody who was a lieutenant Capitol officer that day, Capitol Police officer that day, and others, I believe that it looks not just like an intelligence failure, but an intentional intelligence failure. And I believe that we will release that for the entire public to see. And I will also make this commitment. Most presidents wait until their last day in office to issue their pardons because they don't want the accountability for it. On day one, January 20th, 2025, every peaceful protester that day will receive a pardon. That is justice in this country. One standard of the rule of law and a total release of everything the government actually knows, whether or not the Jan 6 Commission censored it. Thank you for your question, brother. I appreciate your courage in having the courage to speak in your position.
Back with me, I interviewed a man, Tommy Tatum from Greenville, Mississippi. And probably, you know, your audience probably knows better than me that Greenville, Mississippi is incredibly poor. And it's tough growing up there. He happens to be white, but most of the people that he grew up around were not, right? And I asked him once, because one of the things that he did was he started these local radio stations. And so he had like 11 radio stations before January 6th. And I said to him, you know, Tommy, and you'll find a lot of people attacking him on the internet, you know, but you won't ever find someone who gave 2 minutes to figure out who this man is, and, you know, as a whole. And I said to him, why radio stations? You're not a journalist. How did you get into that? And he thought about it for a moment, and he looked at me and he said, you know, Lara, he said, where I come from, we're just throwaway people. And I wanted to give people a voice. And I thought about that so much, Christine, because that was kind of an epiphany for me, because I realized that when people, when, you know, elitists in this country and other people who do it without thinking, when they say flyover country, what do they really mean?
Flyover.
They really mean throwaway country. That's what they mean. They mean that most of the United States, most of the population of this country, millions of people, like the millions, tens of millions that voted for Donald Trump, that they're just throwaway people. They don't matter. Their stories don't matter. Their voices should never be heard. They should just be tossed aside like trash. And that's what this country is doing to millions of its people.
Of anybody who's run for president in the last 30 years, and I intend to build it. So thanks a lot. Of course, thank you so much. Thank you.
Sir, if you become president, what would you do to help the January 6th defendants still suffering in the D.C. gulag?
Anyone who is peaceful gets a pardon, and anyone who has a due process violation gets a pardon. And I'm very firm about that.
Thank you. I was beside Roseanne Bull when she was murdered on January 6th, and I would be glad to help you and tell you anything.
I appreciate that, sir. Thank you.